Hello and welcome to another round of Modern Melee. Here with me, I am Ginko.
And me, I'm Marco.
Today we have another banger for you. This one is Mono-Green Tron, and on the other side it is Grixis Death Shadow. We see the Battle of Pokemon, pardon, wrong franchise, Battle of Companions in Jegantha versus Lurus, both respective ones in their decks. So this is a big mana deck versus a big disruption deck. What do you think how this will fare?
I think it's an interesting matchup. I think that Grixis Death Shadow has an edge here. I think it's a very strong deck in the format. Yes.
This is the pause I was waiting for. So what I do think that Tron players are extremely lucky and they have always Tron on turn 3, whether this is by design of the deck or by sheer luck of their draw, but also the London Mulligan did wonders to improve this matchup.
That's true. Well, now perhaps I was saying this automatically because Grixis is such a strong deck in the format. Maybe it's not so good. Maybe the matchup isn't so good against Tron.
But all of this is true. The Grixis Death Shadow is one of the more prevalent decks in the format, and we see a Thoughtseize trying to poke a hole in the Tron player and taking out the
all this dust? Is that all this dust?
No, this is the 2 mana that searches for a land card.
Okay, right. I was wondering.
Sylvan Scrying. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, great choice.
Exactly. So there was one consideration: the Tron player is without green mana currently, and if you take the star, they can be stuck. But this is also risk to take because, Ancient Stirrings and the other green one are the cards to look after if you want to stunt their development of Tron lands on turns 1 to 3.
Okay, Grixis player plays the land and passes the turn. Interesting decision. Maybe he doesn't have anything to play.
Maybe there is somewhere a counterspell hiding in. We see the Tron player sacking the star, getting green mana, playing the tower, and playing Ancient Stirrings. In response, the Grixis Death Shadow player fetching down into the abyss because they have Death Shadow and they want their life total to be as miserable as possible, especially against something like Tron that has no direct damage. And we see here Drawn in the Loft that takes care of the Ancient Stirrings.
Wow, I like this play a lot from the Grixis player. So he knew that Ancient Stirrings is the only way
to progress forward exactly through the deck.
Yeah.
Trying to find the lands necessary to complete, and now we see Expressive Iteration looking at 3 cards, extremely fair card if I may say so, and I do think that is a Snapcaster Mage, a little bit of indecision, probably a Snapcaster Mage in their hand, maybe, checking out the hand as well. Snapcaster Mage in their hand, Mountain into exile, and 1 card on the bottom. Now we see foregoing the land in lieu of another land and playing Death Shadow, the namesake of this namesake card of this deck. So this card is a 13/13 for 1 mana, extremely fair as well, but it has a small drawback that it gets -1/-1 for each life you have.
Yeah,
so currently a 3/3.
Currently a 3/3, but it can grow rather fast.
Exactly. And the Tron player played another tower, put a Jegantha in their hand. There is another Thoughtseize. Another card gets just swept away from the Tron player's hand. This is a Thragtusk, the only thing standing in their way, because if they get a green source, maybe they could have played it. But it is such a high curve that they have, and especially with a 5/5, now 13/13
No.
Chroma dress down, beating down. This is highly unlikely. So a neat trick with a dress down, it takes away all the abilities from a creature, and the Death Shadow has the ability that gets him -1/-1 for each life. If you take this away, Death Shadow is a 13/13. This is extremely powerful, especially because dress down is an enchantment that can be looped with Lurus from the sideboard.
And this is one of the decks that show how lures can be strong in the modern, because you can loop things like dress down, because you can play a 13/13 creature from the graveyard every turn, and so.
Now we see the Death Shadow just growing larger and larger, large enough to take out the Tron player in 2 fell swoops actually. One's for 13, the other one's for 7. This is 20 damage in 2 shots with 1 creature, and we are up to the sideboards. We see the Tron player siding in some interesting cards. Chalice of the Void is one that comes to mind. Second one, maybe even Trinisphere, though I do think if it comes to the point where Trinisphere is impactful, it is probably better in the sideboard as a Karn Wishboard than in the main deck, because it is only a one-off.
Indeed, I do agree. I'm more interested in Grixis player sideboard plan.
So I do think they have several counterspells that can be an upgrade over Drown in the Lock. We saw an especially great use of Drown last round, but I do think in this matchup, Drown in the Lock does not do enough, because Drown player, first of all, they have Graveyard Hate in the main board. Second of all, so they can just mitigate it to Drown in the Lock. Second of all, they have such a high curve that if the Drown in the Lock is one of just a few ways to answer something on the stack, 9 times out of 10 it will be insufficient to answer something like Karn or Ulamog, especially if they come on turn 3.
Exactly.
And we see Dothy Voidwalkers as well, something from the sideboard probably to combat the giant beaters. And we see also a mulligan. Dothy Voidwalkers paired with discard spells means turn 3 Karn or turn 3 Ulamog from the Death Shadows player side. Because you play the Dothy Voidwalker on 2, you take out their planeswalker on turn 3, crack the Dothy Voidwalker, play the card exiled with the Dothy Voidwalker, and you have yourself Tron's worst nightmare.
Indeed, it's a card that has a very high potential in many matchups. Biggest drawback of this card is that it's slow. It comes down for 2 black mana, which is not something that should be forgotten. And then you have 1 whole turn before it can do anything. So it's very, very... it can succumb to many removal spells.
Exactly. We have come to the point in Modern where 2 mana 3/2 with extra great upside is too slow. And I do say this with the utmost certainty that it really is.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we see the Tron player mulliganing down to 5, actually, and the Death Shadow player satisfied with their 6. Now, Jegantha and Luris are still open. This means that all the cards satisfy the requirements. Sometimes the Tron player do have several cards in their sideboard, like Force of Figures, that break the Jegantha constriction. And we see here them mulliganing down to 4, I believe, which is not a great sign. But as I was saying several times, there can be a play pattern that requires certain cards that are just not compatible with the companions shown in game 1.
As a Hammer Time player, I felt the force of vigor many times against the Tron player.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so a very aggressive mulligan series from the Tron player, trying to find a very specific hand, I imagine. I can't imagine this many times he didn't draw a land.
Exactly. So, but the problem, but not for the Tron player, but for the other players. Oh god.
Oh no, this is not good.
This is mulligan to 3. The advantage of Tron is if you mulligan down to 3 and you have 3 Tron lands and your first 3 turns yield some fat monster from the top deck, you will win the game.
Yeah, that is that is true about Tron deck. The thing is, in Modern, 3 turns can be a long time.
Exactly, that is also true. But we see Ponder from the Tron player just shipping down a whole bunch of cards, playing a forest, playing the Ancient Stirrings, hoping to find something, probably a land, hopefully an Urza's land, and there is one of the 3 trifecta from the Urza's lands into the hand and shipping it down to the Grixis opponent. They have their thing, which is play a fetch, shock down to 17, play Ravnica land, and play something for 1 mana. Be it DRC, be it Thoughtseize, be it Death Shadow, but not in this instance, and that's it.
Yeah, I guess you can also play Ragavan if you have one.
Exactly.
If you are a wealthy player.
We don't discriminate.
Yeah, no.
But exactly, yes. So there are several 1-drops that demand an answer from the opponent, from each side actually. Ooh, and here we see a Chalice of the Void on 1. This is can be very difficult for any player that plays a lot of 1-drops, especially Grixis Death Shadow that plays like 20 1-drop cards or something, between Thoughtseize, DRCs, Ragavans, Death Shadows, and all the other ones that they might have brought in from the sideboard. But we will see. There was an Urza's Mishra's Bubble cracked, I'm sorry, 1 extra card drawn, a little bit of information gained, but more importantly, surveilled into the graveyard, another land. Here we see Den of the Bugbear. Very strong land, a land that came out on top, and we see here Alpine Moon on the stack, Surveil Trigger on the stack. Seems like
Alpine Moon will go to the graveyard.
And there will be another card, another 1-drop that just dies, but the DRC is a 3/3.
Sorry, not Surveil, because of course the Shadow is a creature.
Exactly.
So yeah, this was to make DRC into a 3/3 flyer.
Exactly. This is just to get Delirium, just throwing stuff into the Chalice of the Void, not caring if it gets countered, because the role of the Grixis Death Shadow is to push in damage, especially when the Tron player mulliganed, when they are stumbling, just push in damage as much as possible.
Will it be enough? Will one lone DRC be enough to win against?
We will see. There is another shock, another land entering the battlefield. On the end step, we know that the namesake card, the Death Shadow, cannot be played, but there is a naked Snapcaster Mage just being played as an ambush Viper to shorten the clock into a 3-turn clock. And we see an expressive iteration, surveilling into the graveyard, another land. Jesus, there's a lot of lands. We see another Dragon's Rager's Channeler, which can be played, but it will just be eaten by the Chalice. So it will stay in exile and crunching in for 5 damage. The Tron player is down to 9. Yeah, well, might as well try, right? Yes, and that's it from the game and match. The Tron player just conceded the game. They had no outs. They had only one Tron piece on the battlefield and a high curve. Also, they mulligan down to Oblivion, and that's it.